when you got to say those few lines from the opening scene of The Godfather. In your mind, are you playing Brando playing Vito, or are you just straight up? Did you go into those scenes going, "I get to play Vito today"?
It's probably a bit of both. It's a very good question, Jake.
If you can't tell, I always love talking with you, man. It's always a
You're a
pleasure.
gentleman, but call me Billy next time, will you? Enough of this,
Well,
Mr.
my
Zane.
my my southern mother would kill me if I called you Billy.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
All right, excellent. We'll jump into this. Mr. Zane, this performance is unreal. I truly do appreciate your time, and Chicago loves you, man. I hope you know that.
So good to be speaking to the hometown, to the home
Yes,
crew.
sir. Yes, sir. I got a lot of questions for you, and I'm going to start with what is a big and maybe a silly question, but I was wondering if you could imagine sitting in a movie theater with Mr. Brando, and you watch this movie together, and when it's over, you lean over and you ask him, "What did you think about how I did this? What is an aspect of your performance that you would love to get his thoughts on?"
Well, it's interesting how we had the privilege of working with quite a few family members on the project, and the one thing they all uh, affirmed was that we captured his sense of humor, we captured his joy, and kind of his spirit and his curiosity, and that was really the acid test. Like, did we do him a solid? The whole point was to reclaim the legacy from the trauma that befell him, or what assumptions there were of the man, and really shine a light on this little known fact that he was quite possibly the godfather of the environmentalist movement, let alone, the champion he was known for civil rights and indigenous rights, ever the humanist. But from a personal standpoint, to see if we captured his curiosity and his whimsy and his playfulness. And according to them, we did, but I'm certainly in a uh, hypothetical. If I was sitting with the man, I guess I would be pleased to know if we nailed that. If
I love that the first moment we meet him, he plays a prank, and I just thought, like, it's funny. So it's funny that that's your answer, because my first thought was, God, I hope that that's what he was like. Like, I obviously never had the chance to meet him. I would love to talk about finding his voice, because it's kind of unreal how, like, I could close my eyes during this film and it felt like I was listening to him. And I'd imagine, obviously, as an actor, it's a process. How do you know when you've found it, when the job is done? Do you remember the moment that you said, "Okay, like, I'm good. I don't need to keep working on it. I've got it"?
um, it's interesting from vocally. I have a much lower register and he's much higher pitched. And there's a lot of people who do really good Brando impressions. I am not one of them. Um, I I tapped into the on ramp for me was the behavior and his rhythm and cadence, his the pacing and the time he took um, to formulate his thoughts, and that was something that I clicked into. The tone was something that I had to work at, certainly because it was beyond my normal range, but I didn't want to obsess over it. You know, I wanted to not think about that modulation and just be him and improvise as him. And that was really the most liberating space, is when things would happen that I, would fabulously broadside any expectation. I try not to have expectation as I work. I don't think he did. I think he worked kind of the same way. And and then just riff as him when we started really going there and finding the comfort of improvising as Marlon Brando. That was a lot of fun. That was the moment.
That is unreal. This is a super film nerdy question, because I would love to talk about shooting the Godfather sequences,
Sure.
because obviously in this film you don't get to just play Brando. To a certain degree, you do get to play Vito Corleone. So I would love
Right.
to know, in that moment when you got to say those few lines from the opening scene of The Godfather, in your mind, are you playing Brando playing Vito, or are you just straight up? Did you go into those scenes going, "I get to play Vito today"?
It's probably a bit of both. It's a very good question, Jake. It was honestly, I think, the first thing we filmed, and
That's
we
a
wanted.
big first.
Well, that was the point. We started this. this is the little engine that could. This is a passion project of almost 7 years. It's an independent, singly sourced, equity financed movie, that we just made and pulled across the finish line with love over the course of these years. We started during COVID, and we're probably one of the first COVID compliant productions, which cost a fortune to like have everyone tested every 5 minutes. You know, and we just wanted to begin with what we could. We couldn't get to Tahiti because it was closed. We couldn't fly. We were kind of stuck here. But we ended up just doing all of the behind the scenes, all the film recreations and all the Carson interview and the Cavett piece. So we went, all right, let's do that. Let's just start. Let's start. And we were like, no, we got baptism by fire. We got to go in hardcore. And if we can nail this, we can do anything. And it was a mystical moment, for crew as well as, me, just stepping into that space and recreating it. And as you say, saying those lines, the one that I really feel we nail, and I just hear the music of is, and what is that? That one was just like, it's right out of the film for me, and recreating his response when you finally come around and see him as he did in the movie, breath for breath, action for action, beat for beat. Like we were so meticulous in those recreations, which gave me the liberty to improvise when we were not, right? So we had to get those right.
Unreal. As a quick follow-up, is there another role of his that you'd love to play him playing? Because I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary about the making of the island of Dr. Moreau. That could be a movie in and of itself. I would love to see you playing Brando, playing Dr. Moreau.
I've heard that a few times, and I think, as he was older, why the answer is why not just continue with it, because that is such a wacky experience. I knew some of the actors who were on that as well, playing some of the animals. It was I have not seen the doc. I just kind of wanted to get this portion of the Brando tale behind me, I guess, and then happy to look forward towards that. But that's an interesting idea, to be honest.
I'm sure you didn't finish this thinking, oh, I'm going to be asked about doing a sequel during the press tour, but it's a good time that it was over. And I was like, there are so many more movies I want to see Billy Zane do with this. This might be a strange question, but
yeah,
there was a period of time when both you and Marlon Brando were acting in movies at the same time. Like, do you know if he saw any of your work? Like, surely he would have seen. Is me being just a presumptive to assume that he would have seen Titanic?
You would think he would have. Or Dead Calm, where many people associated some of that early work to him. I would have liked to have, I would have hoped you would have seen that one, to be honest. But it's been a bit of a mystery, the fact that folks ask, did you ever meet him? And I lament having not prior to the film. But the minute we started, I was oddly glad, because it would have been yet one more thing that defined the otherness between us, as opposed to really stepping in, have never set my eyes upon him in reality. Maybe it's just my rationalization for a lost opportunity. I don't know. But I was just like, yeah, I guess it's a good thing we never met. I got to be the guy. So.
Was there the chance to, and it just didn't happen, or was it just one of those things that
we were always like 1 degree away? I had many friends who were close to him, and would attend his kind of secret acting class, and it just never. I just assumed it would happen one day, casually or something, but it never really did. I knew his neighbor Jack Nicholson, quite well during the '90s. I guess we'd go to a few dinners and hang out. But it never, I don't know. I should have pursued it, to be honest.
Well, you know what? Everything works out the way it's meant to.
I agree. I think everything is perfect, Jake, to be honest. And I try not to get in the way.
Well, I have actually had the pleasure of meeting you before. The last time we spoke was right here in Chicago. I actually saw you at Lyric Opera House. You were tremendous in Sound of Music.
Thank you.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk to you about Chicago, because not only were you born here, you come back here, you've given back to the city, you've performed in the city. Marlon Brando, lived up in Evanston, moved there when he was 6. I think he also lived out in Libertyville for a while. He would have spent some time in our city. And I'd love to know in what way as an actor you were most affected by our city, and how do you think, if at all, Marlon Brando, excuse me, may have been affected by our city?
Well, another great question, Jake. Being labeled a Chicago actor when I first came to Hollywood in 1984, it was an incredible calling card. It was a gift. It was a stamp of quality. If you were a Chicago actor, the heavy lifting was somehow done. And in the eyes of casting directors, you didn't come out of here without a sense of authenticity that is, I think, synonymous with every citizen there. It's just something in the character, the civic nature, you know. Chips on both shoulders. We're even keeled, you know what I mean? But we're cool. They're like Chicagoans are just easy, you know. There's not much pretense there. And there's something, the great equalizer, the lakefront, I think, also has. It's so democratic. It's like you can highbrow, lowbrow, whatever the dealio is. Everyone's got the beach, everyone's got the park system, and that was really that. In the end, you're able to like spend time with such a cross section of humanity, and it makes you a citizen of the world without having to leave that grid square, in a way. And I think it informs good actors. When I used to, my parents were on stage there. They were actors. I used to go see them at Theater on the Lake and Cafe Brower, and performed in a show at Cafe with my mom. And they were then patrons at the Goodman Theater, where my sister Lisa, a fellow Chicago actor and singer-songwriter, had performed in the Cherry Orchard for David Mamet's adaptation. And that was, that group would take trips to London called the London Arts Discovery, like 16 older folks, and then my sister and I, and we'd go in September out of school, we'd go see the best of the London stage. And while I was there, I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to maybe study in England? I don't know. Look at that. Wow. Are they good on stage? And then I'd come back and I'd see the best of Steppenwolf and the best of Remains and the best of like Goodman. And I go, no, they crushed it. There's no, these were early days. This is with, Sinise and Malkovich on stage there and right when they were filming True West. And I would be like, yeah, that was the bar. And ultimately chose Hollywood, but it was impressive to see the world-class quality coming out of the city, and it still is. It's still just seminal.
Well, it's impressive to see your work, sir. I begged the studio for some extra time, and they were kind enough to give it to me. And so thank you to them, and thank you for you, and thank you for your performance. Thank you for your time, sir. If you can't tell, I always love talking with you, man. It's always
You're
a pleasure.
Gentleman, but call me Billy next time, will you? Enough of this.
Well,
Mr.
my Southern mother would kill me if I called you Billy.
Well, don't do that. We need you. So.
I appreciate you, Billy. Good to see you. Hope to see you again soon, man.
Thank you, brother.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.